You can always rely on bank holiday weather, can't you, to bring out the best in the UK. Welcome to a rather soggy Oulton Park, everybody. Welcome to the opening rounds of the British GT Championship for 2024. Behind me, the grid will be forming up shortly, and another stellar entry it is. We've got two one-hour races today to look forward to with, as ever, mandatory pit stops. And it's always a fascinating part of the season, the first event, because you've got new teams, new cars, new driver combinations. But here in these rather awful conditions, what we do have is so much more perhaps to discuss. It's a level playing field because for the first race there's no extra compensation time in the pit lane, and you throw the weather into the mix as well, and it is all going to be absolutely fascinating. Bearing in mind as well, we're likely to get a safety car start. It's always good to be on the grid, although I have to say that at the moment I'm quite looking forward to the dry of the commentary box, which means that Bryn Lucas next to me is going to be able to get wet and patrol the pit lane, but there's going to be so much to look forward to in this.
Yeah, it always is. You were saying about it being the first ever race of the season, it's always really exciting because of the no pit stop compensation time, things like that. It's the first and only time of the season that you have that open field, isn't it? And these conditions at Oulton Park, how many times have we seen it rain at Oulton Park in the opening round of the season and it produced masses of drama?
Well, we've had drama already in terms of practice. We've lost, sadly, the Paddock Motorsport Mercedes, which has in it reigning champion Matt Cowley. They had was it the torque tube that blew itself asunder?
I've seen the photos, it did not look good.
No, so sadly we've lost that car. Yeah. And of course, frustratingly, it's two races that you miss. You know, you lose those opportunities to score in either of the races. They start the year on the back foot.
And Matt Topham, who's coming into the championship, GT3, stepping up, he raced a bit of GT3 last season, was hoping to be able to really make a championship fight, and straight away it went away from him with the car not working fully after he had a slight off. He had a bit of a spin as well in warm-up earlier on.
Right. Well, quite a few drivers had dramas in the warm-up earlier on because of these nasty conditions. They were here in the week testing, and there was a bit of rain then. Saturday was largely dry for practice and for qualifying, but now, as you can see, it is decidedly wet. Cars are making their way round to the grid, so we will be able in a few moments, hopefully, to go and find one or two people to talk to, whether that's drivers, whether that's teams, and they've pretty much now got no option but to go on wets. I suppose one of the dilemmas is whether or not you want to go and be at the back of the queue, if you like, for when the race goes green. You might well be behind any dramas, and we know already that there are people, in fact, in strife making their way round to the grid. Wet tyres, though, has got to be the option, and I rather doubt it's going to get dry enough, looking at the cloud above, for people to have to think about a tyre change during that mandatory pit window. But what you are going to want to do is keep out of strife, of course, because not only is the track absolutely sodden, but so are the grass verges, and we know that Oulton Park is a relatively narrow circuit for GT cars. So run wide, find a wet curb, run even wider, find wet grass, you're in big, big trouble. As far as the weather is concerned, well, just rain clouds really, certainly for the next couple of hours, and track temperature of 8.4 degrees for the track temperature. We know it's going to be a safety car start as well, probably 2 laps behind the safety car, and bearing in mind as well, for the first race of the year, it's the notional AM, or the lower graded driver, who will start. So perhaps, in a sense, it's even more important to start behind the safety car, just to give those AM drivers that little bit of confidence. We talked about the Paddock Motorsport Mercedes sadly being absent from the grid. Well, the drivers are on the grid, Ed McDermott and Matt Cowley, and they're with Bryn.
Yeah, thanks very much, David. Just talking about drivers that haven't been able to get out on track, and a really frustrated news for you both, really, about the way it happened. But Matt, for yourself, you know, trying to get that back-to-back title?
Yeah, it's a frustrating way to start the season for sure. It was nothing that Paddock could have done really. The guys did a brilliant job working through the night on a Friday night to get the car back up and running, and then unfortunately with the mechanical issue that we had led to the engine to seize in the end, and yeah, unfortunately there's nothing guys could have done, but we're just hoping that Mercedes stand by us going forward and can help us out for Silverstone.
Yeah, and for yourself, Ed, as well, a tough one for you as well, because, you know, last season was a frustrating one for you and you're hoping to start 2024 in a slightly different way.
Yeah, look, it's incredibly disappointing. We're here to race. Ultimately, we deliberately went with a car like Mercedes because they're typically pretty bulletproof, and to be fair, it's, you know, no one's done anything wrong here. It's just one of these freak scenarios, and you know, sometimes your luck just gets worse and worse and worse, and you have a piece of bad luck, but it's the worst possible piece of bad luck. So, as Matt said, I'm really disappointed for Matt, because, you know, we're here to try and defend his championship. You know, I really believe we've got a great car, a great opportunity. We're working with a great team. The guys have done a fantastic job, and but it's awesome to see such a really competitive grid, and we felt that we were going to be right up there and part of that.
Well, not this time, but maybe next time, gents. Thanks for chatting to us. Now, David Addison has found Sandy Mitchell, who's looking pretty sharp as well this weekend.
Bryn, you're absolutely right. Sandy, here we go again. Start of a new season, typical Oulton Park or Easter weather. This for an AM, for Alex Martin in your car starting, is probably not what he wanted to wake up to.
No, I mean, but we don't expect anything less now from Easter weekend, round one. And yeah, you never know what you're going to get. But yeah, it's difficult this weekend because the conditions have been almost mainly dry throughout the testing and everything. So yeah, now it's kind of back to square one. You know, we were clearly quite fast in the dry, qualifying first and third for this race. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who's got the confidence early on to push, get some tyre temp, because it's quite cold as well, so that's going to be a real challenge for the AM drivers. You're not in the car obviously for that first stint, but how much help can you be on the radio with Alex offering advice, or do you just leave him alone? Yeah, I mean, if he's going well, we'll leave him alone. But yeah, if there's anything that we can spot, we can improve on, whether it's you know, someone else's lines or anything that we can see on the data, then yeah, we're able to try and help out and give a bit of advice. Fingers crossed. Good luck. So Sandy Mitchell, along with Alex Martin, who is new to British GT, the Lamborghini that runs in the GT3 class. We'll talk about GT3 and GT4, of course, during the race. But first of all, we better explain what the differences are between the two classes, between GT3 and GT4. And to do that, your guide is Joe Osborne.
British GT is made up of two classes, GT3 cars and GT4. Here we have the selection from BMW. Both M4s and both start out life very similar in the BMW factory. The chassis are taken from the production line, and then that's when their paths split and they're very different cars. Here we have the GT3 car. You can see the width, the stance of the car, so much more aggressive than the GT4 cousin here. The rear wing, much wider, much higher, creating more downforce than the GT4 one. The engine in this car is fully the same as a road car. Same engine, same gearbox, same turbo. The GT3 has a dry sump. The engine is 20 centimetres lower and further back, lowering that centre of gravity, helping with all of that performance. 180 kilos lighter here in the GT3 car than the GT4. Weight saving is only a positive. Which one do I prefer? I love the GT3 for the rawness, the aerodynamic grip that you get. It throws you into the track and gives you an amazing sense of speed. The GT4 car, heavier and softer, but you're able to manipulate that weight and really extract a good lap time. If you ask me to decide which one I prefer, I can't call it either way.
Great stuff there from Joe. Now here I'm a little bit further back down on the grid with Mikey Porter, sitting in pole position with your teammate. This is your debut, and when we throw stats out like you're only 16, it is quite remarkable how well you've done this weekend.
Yeah, done really good job. Youngest on the grid. I think it's a really good place to be in. You know, have everyone looking, seeing I'm the youngest is always good. And yeah, Jamie done an amazing job in the first qualifying, putting it on pole. And yeah, hopefully we can have a great result out of it.
What's it like for you? I mean, we know you're really from Ginettas, so being around this track, you know it, but these conditions are particularly tricky.
Yeah, this track's always really slippy in the wet. It's probably one of the hardest on the calendar. But yeah, I've done a race here in Ginettas already, learnt my craft. So yeah, I think I'll be quite good.
Yeah, well, very best of luck. If we just have a quick peer over, good luck there to both. Let's just go a little bit further back here, because I just want to show you this car number 47. Sorry. Oh, hello, how you doing, Seb? You're right. If we go a little bit further back here, we can see this car number 47. This is Mark Warren. Mark Warren is the quickest AM by some margin. If you have a glance around, he's surrounded by silver class drivers. So very, very good performance there from him. Let's go and see if I can find, as we're going a little bit further back here, see if we can find Luca Hopkinson. Not sure if we can. No, he's a little bit too far back. In fact, you could just see the very lively coloured Mercedes back there, but that's Luca Hopkinson also making his debut. He's been around here a fair bit as well, but he is very, very rightly nervous but excited to be here on the track for British GT and GT4. So you can just see how far back it is. If I went all the way back down there, I'd have quite a long way to get off the grid, but we've got to do that right now. The warnings are going, and I think we're ready to go up to Adders for the commentary of the opening round of the British GT 2024. It's a very, very wet but exciting time. Adders.
Bryn, thank you very much. Well, we're almost good to go. The road actually might be getting slightly kinder. I think it was a bit less rainy as I was leaving the grid than half an hour or so ago. But Joe, still these are very, very testing conditions.
Yeah, really are. I think purple sector of the day goes to you. The sprint you had from the grid here was amazing, so congrats on that. But yeah, the rain is easing. This is what the forecast said, but I can't see it going to slicks at any point. So the teams will now be making their last call. That's on tyre pressures. The higher you start those pressures, the denser the air is in the tyre. The quicker the tyre turns on, but the quicker it goes off. They can obviously bleed it in the pit stop, but you have a limited amount of time to take air out. You could have a second set of wets pre-pressured, ready to go, but that's going to be the hard point for these guys, is to get these cars through an hour in an optimal window.
Now, I don't think we need to worry about tyre changes at the pit window. It might stop raining, but it's going to take a long, long time, isn't it, for this road to become dry. There is really no break in the cloud. It's pretty grotty as the field is about to be released. Now, safety car start, if you're unfamiliar with this, means that as soon as the safety car pulls away, the clock starts. So the race is on. There's no warming up lap, in quotes. These effectively become warming up laps, but the race will start as soon as the safety car moves away, and it is going to be Rob Collard then on pole position. But the order for the first 2 laps potentially with the safety car on track will be the grid order, and there you can see the field stretching all the way back down to Dearly. 97 Aston Martin is good to go. Andrew Howard is going to go first in that car, and you can see as the final grid personnel clear the road. I thought there was a gap further down in the dip there, just behind the Charles Dawson driven Team Parker Mercedes, but you can see the field all set, all good to go, and very shortly British GT for 2024 will be in business. But the real fascination is going to come after the first couple of laps when we go racing. And I suppose in a way, Joe, for the AM driver here, it's about self-preservation this first stint. Don't do anything heroic, just bring the car to that pit window and then let the pro earn his corn.
Yeah, first race of the season, you've got to get it to that first pit window where you can get the pro in and let them see what they can do. But so many unknowns for these AMs. They had their warm-up this morning, but they only gave them a quick insight to the track conditions. The thing with the wet is there's a million types of wet. When it's dry, it's dry. The track evolves, it grips up a bit, but even a little bit of rain can change how the car was feeling from an hour ago when they were in it. Looks like it's a fair amount of standing water, so it's going to be real hard. This is maximum concentration needed from every single one of these 36 drivers.
So the safety car has pulled away, the race is on, and they will run in grid order, and that means that Rob Collard will lead the field with Ian Loggy lining up with him on that notional front of the grid, but now 1 car behind. Alex Martin, new to the championship, he starts 3rd, and it's going to be Sean Balfe, previous champion, who will start 4th, ahead of Mark Radcliffe, who has really come on a pace in the last 12 months, and Michael Johnston, the Silver Round winner in GT4 last year, next, moving up to GT3. Mike Price and Morgan Tilbrook start 7th and 8th, ahead of Sasha Kakad, and then LMP2 winner at Le Mans many years ago, Chris Buncombe, very rapid driver, good to have him on the grid. Next comes John Ferguson and Giacomo Petrobelli, returning to Oulton Park for the first time in over a decade, ahead of Mark Smith and then Simon Orange. Next up, you will find Carl Cavers and then Andrew Howard. And the GT3 part of the grid completed by Kevin Say, who didn't get the Regulation 2 lap times in, Richard Neary, who didn't get 1 because he was off the road, and Matt Topham, who missed qualifying because of damage sustained early on in the day. Then you get to the GT4 grid, pole sitter Jamie Day. Jack Brown is alongside him, ahead of Mark Warren, who was really impressive in Porsche Sprint Challenge last year, and Charles Dawson is next. Then the returning Marco Signoretti. Callum Davis's McLaren, I think, was the gap on the GT4 grid. That car had damage in qualifying on Saturday, but Harry George and Colin White, Mercedes and Ginetta respectively, are there. Colin White, former hero in National Hot Rod Racing many moons ago. Blake Anglis and Ravi Ramyud, stepping up from Ginetta Racing into GT this year, come next, ahead of Ian Goff, now the BMW, not a McLaren, and Will Moore in one of these 2 stunning sounding second generation Ford Mustangs, ahead of Kavi Jandu in the Toyota Gazoo Racing UK Supra, and Ian Duggan in one of these 2 new Lotus Emiras. Then you've got Stephen Lake, new to the championship, and Tim Docker in the Stella Motorsport Audi, the GT4 Audi R8 is at the back of the grid. So the race, as I say, is on. The safety car is going to be in this time, so the race will properly go live. We'll go to green flag conditions at the end of this lap, so just 1 lap under the safety car. And of course, if you're John Ferguson or others in the body of the field, you're just going to get a face full of spray.
Yeah, you really are. Loggy already looking racy in that first Mercedes behind Collard. But it looks like there's a few already sleeping. Gaps are quite big. Collard's got a real easy gap behind. Look at that. Balfe won't be happy with himself in that Duckham's McLaren, the yellow fronted car. All looks clean at the moment, but look at the spray. It's really, really hard to see anything really more than the third, fourth car in the pack.
And Alex Martin there sort of ducking to the inside going into Old Hall, partly to see where he's going as much as anything. And a big, big slide there. That's the Sasha Kaka Hugo Cook Audi that goes around. And please, please, please get it going. Yes, you will. Will he? Will he? Will he? The car with a yellow flag being shown at the approach to the corner to warn people that there's a spinner does now get going, and thankfully it wasn't collected by everybody, but the cars are still pouring out of Deer Leap to start their first flying lap. And in these conditions it is all about survival. But Rob Collard, very experienced driver, he's no stranger to racing in the wet. He's a class winner in the Spa 24 Hours. He leads, and look, Alex Martin, new to GT3 racing, is right there on the tail of Ian Loggy.
Yeah, really hustling on. Ian won race 2 here last year in the wet, so we know Ian is quick, but Martin definitely on the front foot. We see Docker there, but it looked like it was a spun Lotus to the inside of Cascades, potentially stuck on the grass. This is so tricky. It is so cold here, 7 degrees, cold tyres, cold brakes. I think that's what caught the Audi out of Kakad, probably the rear brakes just locking, and then you add cold brains into it. That's why we're going Toyota Supra of Jundu off on the inside of Shell. You can see how banked it is. It rejoins, spraying mud all over the track. Keep going, please, please. That is going to be lively the next lap. That sort of grass track, muddy entry to Shell Hairpin.
The Lotus that went off was number 20 of Ian Duggan, or dug in possibly if it's on the grass there. Kavi Jundu off the road then in the Supra. And as Joe rightly says, next time around for the GT3 cars, they're going to have a different track surface. Now, Rob Collard leads, but actually, Ian Loggy over the course of the lap has got a bit more confidence as the tyres have warmed up. He is getting away from Alex Martin. He's closing a little bit on Collard Senior, who shares with his son Ricky as they come up out of Deer Leap then over the timing line. The top 3 getting away a little bit from Sean Ball 4th. First race, the McLaren for Garage 59 in the Gulf 12 Hours last year had quite a big accident actually, really knocked him about, but it's good to have Sean back on the grid sharing with Adam Smalley. Behind them is Mark Radcliffe, and then in 6th place Michael Johnston. He's got Mike Price tucked up behind him in the green Mercedes there. Michael Johnston new to GT3, and he really is thrown in at the deep end.
Yeah, seen a great improvement from not only Price in that Mercedes, but Greystone have got on top of that car, and it's now looking very racy. Probably the best GT3 in terms of a chance of an overtake this lap, I would say. Johnson in his first year of GT3 racing has got a baptism of fire here. Firewood light in these conditions, that is. Price looking racy, that Merc so strong in the high-speed corners. Maybe the BMW gets a slightly better traction on the exit with the turbo power. The mud actually from that Supra of Jundu, not as bad as we maybe thought, so no one caught out by it yet. But yeah, it looks like it's going to be starting to pan out here as we see Ferguson on Smith. Smith in that black and pink paddock McLaren just touching the exit curve, and look at that gap grow as it spins up. That then gives Orange a chance in the other McLaren as a look at him, as we then see Carl Cavers in the BMW, Kevin Say, Richard Neary. This is a pretty feisty group of characters in there, probably led by the feistiest one in Ferguson himself.
Yes, quite. And Kevin Say, the man from Macau, 15th, but a winner here when he first came to Oulton Park in 2021, and a big moment there as Mark Smith oh so nearly gets in the back of Ferguson. Up the escape road has gone Carl Cavers as well. They survive it somehow. How contact wasn't made there, looking back. Oh, that was quite a moment, wasn't it?
Yeah, here we go. I nearly said the day's guy was celebrating. That must have been millimetres. I don't think Ferguson saw him, so didn't do anything different, but Smith had to go left, couldn't even keep it on the escape road, had to go there, and obviously Carl Cavers is probably judging his braking point on Mark Smith, which has then made him go through. So I said it was going to be a lively pack, and they waited all of, what, 6 seconds to prove me right there. So seeing the front starting to pan out a little bit, looking at sector times, it does look like Collard is the quickest at the moment, and that's why he's in the lead of the race. Without staying the obvious, Price again, a mega run on the exits. We go back to GT4. See Jamie Day here leading GT4, actually still staying on the back of the bigger brother, or cousin as I called it in the intro, GT3, GT4, Aston of Topham, who's had a hard chance, no chance to qualify with damage done in free practice, so he's in another baptism of fire.
Rob Collard has done the fastest lap as the tyres get a bit warmer. He's over 11 tenths up on Ian Loggy. Jamie Day then leading Jack Brown, and then Mark Warren, new to GT4 as a championship, although the Caymans in the the Sprint Challenger, very similar to a GT4 car. That's the top 3 in GT4. That's the overall order on the timing tower at the moment. You're looking back from John Ferguson's BMW, and tucked up behind him is Simon Orange in his 2nd year in the British GT Championship, and he's right behind him as they come nose to tail through Charleroi corner. Then you've got the recovering Mark Smith and Kevin Say trying to wriggle his way through the traffic, but it's just not that easy to overtake around here.
Really isn't. You've got to bide your time. You've got to set up one major overtake. Orange is very wide. You can see him actually touching the curb, apex and exit, getting a squirrel on and losing that time. But the worst you can do is have lots of little looks, as we see Kevin Say have a little look, then Neary on the background of Cavers. But you've got to save your time. Take a lap or two, work out where you're strongest, where they're weakest, and then the corner before, line it all up and get your exit as quick as you can to get that speed and attack them all in one big bang. Hopefully not physically bang, but that rear view of Ferguson showing you the spray. It's like there's a Karcher jet washer coming out of the diffuser, just spraying it all over Orange. But Orange looked pretty confident, little wobble in the middle of Druids. That's definitely not the place I'd like to be there. And that paddock, McLaren, you can just see all of these cars starting to find different lines, different grip, breaking off line. That's the big one there. Orange right tucked up. Can he get a bit of a cutback, get down the inside here, which then goes into turn 1? Maybe kept it a bit tight. You can see the rear of the car saying no thank you, snapping out, and then ultimately losing him traction over the start-finish line.
Rob Collard's just getting away a little bit more. 2 fastest laps in a row now, as oh so close to the back of John Ferguson's BMW. Comes the McLaren behind. This is for 11th and 12th places. Simon Orange then right there. This is John Ferguson in the BMW tiptoeing his way into Cascades, and there's not a huge amount of evidence of the road drying out. The spray still hanging in the air, and it does look as though the BMW is holding up the McLaren just a little bit, as again there, look to the inside. Simon Orange peels to the inside, partly for the line, partly for visibility.
Yeah, really looking racy on the way into corners, so going in fast, out slow. He just needs to kind of work out where to go. Like I said, just break it into segments, which bit's going to be easier to attack John Ferguson. John will probably only be looking in his mirror once every little straight, just checking the progress of Orange. Hopefully he's not just staring in his mirror, getting distracted by it, because he is starting to get a cluster of cars all the way back to Andrew Howard. So 5 cars tucked behind him. All of them want to be in front of him, but at the moment he's got the best space. Jamie Day really starting to pull out a gap, isn't he, over Jack Brown in that Optimum McLaren. Yellow this year, not orange. And then another group of cars as we go to Collard. The gap looked like it had grown, like you said, but I think now with Loggy here, doing a purple sector 2, I think this gap might be back to about a second. So maybe just taking half a second of him out of this last lap could be a mistake, could be the tyres starting to turn on, turn off for the relevant cars. So there's a lot going on here.
You're right, Loggy has just done the fastest lap of the race, a 1:48.7, so he's taken round about just under 4 tenths out of Rob Collard. The gap's down to 9 tenths. In 3rd place is Alex Martin, and these 3 escaping from Sean Balfe in 4th, ahead of the McLaren, sister McLaren, or similar McLaren behind of Mark Radcliffe. Michael Johnston is in 6th, and there is Sandy Mitchell looking at the data in the Barwell Motorsport pit bunker. So Ian Loggy, who in a sense might be adopting the principle now, all I need to do is stay in touch, because then in the second stint Phil Keane can do the hard yards. Off at Lodge Corner though has gone the BMW. Is that the Carl Cavers car, 22 I think it is, that's facing the wrong way. So Carl Cavers in the Century Motorsport BMW is on the grass, and we've talked about how wet and slippery the grass is, but is he going to be able to get off? He's having a good old go. Trouble is he's got to reverse into the traffic.
Yeah, I think he's done the right job there. He's just got back enough to get himself round. Quite an early part of the corner to have a spin. I just wonder if he got slightly assisted in that one. It could have just been under brake in the turn-in phase. That would be my first guess, but he's done well to get out there, stays on the lead lap. Yes, your world's just unravelled, but one safety car and you're back in it. Saw great pace from his teammate Lewis Plato in qualifying as we go for the battle for ninth between the Buncan brothers, Johnny Adam, but Petrobelli in the car at the moment. Not as high up as I thought, the Aston Martin. I thought Petrobelli was going to be the real sort of shoe-in to be at the front of this grid where we're seeing Collard, but maybe Blackthorn first race in British GT, just getting their head around it. Petrobelli first time in this car. We know Johnny Adam is a serial winner, so they're going to be there at some point this season, but maybe a bit lower than I expected at round 1. So
Giacomo Petrobelli, former Formula Parma Audi racer and a Blancpain GT racer, chasing after Chris Buncan. There's the John Ferguson battle pack with Simon Orange, Mark Smith, Kevin Say behind. And this is what happened to Carl Cavers. Have a look to the far left. He spins into view, and Richard Neary was involved / caught up in that as well somehow.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's guilty, but you can see there's no paint on that panel because he likes doing a bit of damage, does our Richard. But I think it was probably just a concertina effect up, and I'd imagine Richard had nowhere to go. Tried to get out of it, and they both had sort of a lazy half spin. Richard getting slightly luckier with his escape than Carl Cavers in the BMW. But yeah, it's hard to see from that angle. At the moment, I wouldn't say that needs to attract a penalty at the moment, but it'd be interesting to get Carl Cavers' thoughts on that after he gets out of the car and has probably calmed down a little bit.
What we are having, though, is now track limit warnings, which in a sense is a surprise in the wet, because you'd think people would be trying to keep away from the curb. Now, incident involving car 8 and car 22 under investigation. Car 22 is Carl Cavers, car 8 is Richard Neary. So race control have pieced it all together, and they would like a look at all of that. So the drama for Carl Cavers, though it is confirmed, is being looked at by race control. The three leaders still covered only by 1.8 seconds, and Alex Martin did the last lap as the best of anybody in the race. So he's learning fast about GT3.
Yeah, and he's got to. He's first year in it. There will just be so many new experiences for him. Obviously a front-wheel drive expert in the past, now coming rear-wheel drive. Everything's almost put on its head in the wet. In a front-wheel drive car, you would bury your throttle if you get a bit of oversteer to straighten out. If you did that in a GT3 car, you'd be in the lake probably here at Oulton Park. So they'll just be trying little things. Like we said, Sandy Mitchell, one of the best pros on the grid. A lot of these teams as well now, live telemetry, live onboard video. So the co-driver, the pro in this instance, can actually comment, try this, try that, especially when your sister car is in the lead. Oh, by the way, Rob is using 4th gear here at Cascade, you're using 3rd. There'll be live coaching on the go. Of course, it's easy to overload the AM and tell them too much information, and then it starts to be a detriment, but that could be what we're seeing here. But these three are really in a bit of a class of their own. 6 seconds is the gap from the back of that blue and black Lamborghini all the way back to Sean Bowles. Again, someone that we know is super rapid in these conditions.
Now, we've touched on the pit window. The pit window differs here between GT3 and GT4 because the Oulton Park pit lane is not the biggest. It's pretty crowded. Just to make it safer, the pit windows are staggered. So the GT3 cars come in after 22 minutes of the race have elapsed and must be done by 32. It is 28 to 38 for the GT4 cars. Those slightly more road-based, slightly slower, less powerful cars, one of which, there, number 61 Mustang, booms past the pits. Eric Evans, the reigning GT4 champion, at the wheel. So we've still got Alex Martin as the fastest man in the race, and Eric Evans there is currently 4th in GT4. And have a look, 2nd, 3rd and 4th all together. Jack Brown, Mark Warren, Eric Evans, they're developing into a real old fight for 2nd in class, while Jamie Day escapes up the road.
Yeah, he's done mega. They've got that car really sorted. Fassetti, new to British GT this year, but kind of really phoenixed out of our racing, a team that have won so many races on this support package. The other interesting bit I've just spotted is this GT3, bit of damage on the rear right as Buncan goes straight up the chicane and cuts in front of Petrobelli. There's something flapping on the rear arch of the Collard car. So that's the first GT4 car traffic we've got. And they've now got 15 more GT4 cars to start to navigate round. Docker in that Audi, you can see in the background there, was a bit of an outlier. He's about 15 seconds behind the next one, so they're probably going to get another half a lap of clear. But you just see, I think it is just a wheel arch line and nothing serious. I wouldn't have thought that's come from contact, although there is a bit of a scuff, isn't there, on the rear sort of valance of that Lamborghini. I wonder if he's either caught another car, but maybe even just a tyre stack through the Knickerbrook chicane. I think it's going to be more of an annoyance than an actual performance issue, and I don't think race control are going to have to issue any sort of pit and fix that sort of command on that one.
There's your GT4 second, third, fourth fight. Jack Brown ahead of Mark Warren, and Charles Dawson, number 31 Mercedes. That's the Team Parker Racing Mercedes. He had a few outings in the GT4 European Series last year, but he's adapted to the British GT Championship this weekend seemingly very well. He's got Seb Morris as co-driver, and they're on pole for race 2, but he's under attack, look, because Harry George, number 17 Mercedes, is right there behind as they drop down towards Lodge Corner. The Ram Racing Mercedes, same colours as John Ferguson carries for Ram within GT3 on the BMW, and now Harry George makes his move on the inside line. Look, going down towards Old Hall Corner. Has he got the traction? Thinks better of it. Charles Dawson goes wide, looking for grip on the outside line. Comes off the corner a bit wide, stays ahead, but there is a gap for Harry George to take, but he's not quite brave enough. Yes, he is. He does go through. Goes through, coming out of Denton's. So Harry George goes through, up 1 place in class. That puts him 5th in GT4. Good bit of driving that, but he runs wide, gets all crossed up onto the curb, and that flapping wheel liner is is getting a little bit more pronounced, isn't it?
Yeah, it's make it harder to overtake him because he's a little bit wider, but I don't think it's going to get worse. Sometimes you see bodywork getting worse and worse. He just turns in maybe a bit early on Doc. I'm just trying to see where that contact's going to be. It's really slight, isn't it, if there is any?
You can just see something flick off the car and go out of shot, so I think there was just a rub between them. So Barwell will be looking at that, the team that operates that race-leading Lamborghini. Rob Collard, the driver. It'll be son Ricky to take it over, and 62 Mustang is off the road, and that is Will Moore at the wheel of it, and I'm not convinced it's going to be as easy to get off the grass there as we've seen in other places.
He's properly ploughed himself a furrow there, isn't he? Poor Will Moore, as we see Smith going out wide of Lodge Corner. We do have full course yellow now available to Peter Day, the race director, and that looks like a prime full course yellow. Cars will all have to slow down to 80 kilometres an hour simultaneously. No one wins, no one loses, but it definitely does start to then work out, is the pit window open? And a pit window under full course yellow is almost free lap time wise compared to under green flag conditions. So I think they're going to have to call it in the next 10 seconds. I can't see that Will Moore car getting out, just purely how deep it was buried in on his right rear tyre. But that would have been a pretty fast off as well for Will. Wondering if he would have been able to do it by himself or if he got help. So yeah, this is going to be really hard on Day as well there, that massive gap. If it goes full course yellow, fine. If it goes safety car, everything is lost.
And the chances are that in these conditions, with the track temperature being so low, you would go safety car because you can go quicker behind the safety car than under a full course yellow. So although it's got the danger of bunching everybody up, it's got the safety of keeping the tyre temperatures higher. So quite often you'll see safety cars used at the end of a full course yellow period to let the tyres get the temperature back. But there's no sign of either just yet, so the race continues to be live. This is the lead car, remember. We've had very nearly 20 minutes, and after 22 they can pit. So only a couple of laps really before we need to think about the pit stops. That is the car that's concerning us, and no doubt race control, but there's not very much you can do about that. Of course, the problem is now, though, for race control, that if they do go full course yellow or safety car, it's going to coincide pretty much with the start of the window.
Yeah, very spicy. I'm excited for it. So what we're waiting for. But yeah, the drivers obviously already seen that Mustang off, but the teams will be telling them this is even more important. You push past traffic, because if you're sort of dilly-dallying around a GT4 and don't get round him, then that teammate or the loggy car is still behind you. Whereas if you can use a GT4 car as a buffer, it makes your restart much, much easier. So we see Kyle Cavers battling back through the GT4 cars after potentially an assisted spin at that last corner. But yeah, we're 2 minutes away from the pit window.
Prepare for full course yellow, it says on the timing screen, and we are going full course yellow. So you slow to the delta speed that Joe was talking about. You don't bunch up, you just slow to that speed. And anybody that doesn't, goes too quickly under the full course yellow procedure, will be subject to penalties, because the data is available through the GPS service that is there to the race director from TSL, the timekeeping service. And so big disappointment for Will Moore. He's out of the race, he's out of the car, and I would have thought, given the time to get a recovery vehicle, to get that off the grass, it may well have to go to a safety car. However, we'll worry about that in due course. First up, we're a little bit concerned not about 62 but about 63. It's the race leading Lamborghini. Bryn, we know it's got damage. What news?
Yeah, well, I've just spoken to Mark Lemmer. They are not at all concerned about the damage to their car, purely superficial, no worried faces at all, no weird glances around the garage. So Mark Lemmer's very, very confident, and I think they are too.
Excellent news, thank you very much. So there is Mark Lemmer, who is the team principal of Barwell Motorsport, no mean racer himself, and will do some historic racing again this year when time permits. Got a busy programme with British GT, with 2 cars in GT World Challenge Europe as well. And he's got a 1-3 at the moment. Rob Collard ahead of Ian Loggy, and then Alex Martin as they come down now towards Lodge Corner. So everybody adhering to this full course yellow condition. The pit window is almost ready to open, and of course it's going to go slightly against the leaders, isn't it? They might be across the line before it opens, whereas those in the pack, they're in a better position. The window will be open by the time they chug out of dear lead.
Yeah, I think Balf, the car behind what we're riding on now with Alex Martin, is going to be the first to pit. You could see Martin couldn't do it, it's still 5 seconds too heavy. They're pulling that Mustang out, so that's probably 5 minutes away. So just looking out of my window, Balfe didn't come in, so the first coming in is the Optimum car. I think that's a big win for them.
Yeah.
If the full course yellow goes away before Collard and co can get back round to the pit lane. So you can see on the graphics who's pitting, and Radcliffe and Johnson, Tom Gamble there helping mark out the car. Actually a change of wet tyres. I think that's probably for the pressure rather than the freshness of the tyre. They would have had live telemetry, being able to work out. They don't look new wet, they look scrubbed. It's not super wet, but just to be able to get the pressure in the window that Tom Gamble will want them.
And just to make the point also, in terms of housekeeping here, the GT3 pit stop time, 70 seconds line to line. So if you think they're not hurrying, well, there's a reason for that, because even if you are really quick, you still can't leave the pit lane until you've had 70 seconds. If it's GT4, it's 100, and if you're a GT4 silver combination, there's an extra 14 seconds to serve as well. So it's partly for safety, this, so you don't have a mad scramble in the pit lane. Of course, if you're under that regulation pit stop time, then expect a penalty. The 27, which will make its way down the pit lane now with Tom Gamble at the wheel, McLaren factory driver, that could well be in the pound seat. 62 has been pulled off the grass and is heading back towards the pit lane.
Yeah, that'll be dropping quite a lot, so that 70 seconds hopefully has elapsed as we see Johnston then leave behind. So if we don't go to safety car, all of these gaps will stay the same, and it's now down to who and which manufacturers tuned in that 80 km/h limiter the best.
Right, the pit stop time for Mark Radcliffe to give over to Tom Gamble, 70.8 seconds. That's pretty much perfect. Johnston to Dan Harper, 71.9 seconds. So, okay, they're not under, but they have wasted a little bit of time in that pit stop.
Yeah, with all the systems in the car now, there's a delta to your lap time, so and to the pit stop, sorry. So as a driver, you're watching that. The team have put their margin in that they never tell the driver, because then you just take the margin back off. They don't trust you with that. But normally teams are aiming for half a second, so they've been okay, but yeah, it's not the raciest we've seen. And maybe that's just the full course yellow. You go slightly more conservative.
Now, the full course yellow will remain in place until after the pit stops. So everybody can do a pit stop under the full course yellow. So there's no advantage for pitting on one lap, no disadvantage for not pitting on a given lap. So once we have a full course yellow during the window, it will remain to allow everybody to cycle through. And therefore, those that did roll the dice, well, okay, they might gain a place or two, but it's not necessarily a race-winning move. But it rather depends also now where you come out in relation to some of the traffic. I suppose there's the number 44 Supra, which will be heading for the pits in due course. Kvyat had an off. Dan Vaughan was quick in his qualifying session on Saturday, as he should be, because he's a previous GT4 champion. And anticipate both the Barwell Lamborghinis in this time, because for them this is their first opportunity since the pit window has opened. Down the pit road they come. So Ian Loggy brings the Mercedes in, Alex Martin comes in as well. Barwell, of course, now got to sort of double stack, but because you go nose first, it's less of an issue here.
Yeah, and you always put your lead car further down the pit lane, because that will push back earlier, whereas if you did it the other way, potentially the second car in would block in that car. As you see another pushback going down for Century, change of seats there. Rob taking his out, his son Ricky putting probably a smaller one in. Both Ricky and Sandy, the two pros, so slight in their build, probably down in the low 60 kilos, I would have thought. All the cars are ballasted up for an average weight of 85 kilos for both drivers. So actually they get the advantage. It's normally the AM with the lighter pro that has to carry that weight as the ballast rounds, as we see Clutton running round and getting Morgan Tilbrook out, moving from their own team Enduro to Garage 59, serial winners in everything they do. Sister car there, probably my favourite livery on the grid this year. I think mainly because I can spot it easy. It doesn't make me look stupid, but it's striking as well, as we see the two Barwell cars pushing back, leaving in the order they came, Loggy in between the two of them. I then expect Balfe to be pushing back with Morgan Tilbrook 4 or 5 seconds behind that.
So it's going to tee us up for Ricky Collard versus Phil Keane versus Sandy Mitchell, with not much covering those three when we go back to green. Anticipate, oh no, off under full course yellow has gone Kvyat. Now that is not a good look, is it? If you crash under full course yellow conditions, you've got a case to answer.
Yeah, and as a driver, I'm trying to give him an excuse. Shell oils where he's gone off is quite tight, but I do think at 80 you should still be able to get round the corner. So if I can reserve judgment on a big mistake that's just happened there, but that is going to be the wrath of Peter Daly.
Yes, absolutely.
That is where the car went off, so potentially Marshall's there repairing where the Mustang might have dug up some of the turf or barrier damage. But yeah, I think the full course yellow was going to stay out for everyone's pit window, GT3 and GT4, but actually needs to now to recover that car. You can see the rear wheels spinning. I don't know if Cavigendo didn't actually know he was still in gear, but you can see it to the right a shot there, and the marshals won't be particularly helpful with his recovery potentially.
Yes, it's coming out of Shell, isn't it? So that's the end of it. So he's just run wider and wider, hit the barrier, but at 80 kilometres an hour under a full circuit caution, that shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, nothing ceases to amaze me. A bit like when I drive home from here, back down the M6, and you see people wandering around on the motorway, and you're like, how'd you get your licence? I guess we're in a similar position here, but yeah, we're 80 kilometres an hour. I think even in the wet, Shell should have an apex speed of 90, 95. So you should be flat through that corner. The chicanes, you actually have to slow it down because you can't go round at 80. And then you're trying to find out how much you went under. Do I do 75 for 2 seconds? Should I do 85 for 2 seconds and hope they don't spot it on the GPS? That's the only bit you can really cheat at as a driver under full course yellow. But at that point, I can't actually work out what has happened as the GT4 pit window now opens.
I was about to mention the fact that here you've got the GT4 leader Jamie Day ahead on the road of Johnny Adam, who of course has taken over from Giacomo Petrobelli. So you might think, well, that's really bad news because the GT3 cars now have got stuck in traffic. But it's all going to balance out because now the GT4 cars get out of the way. They will make their round of pit stops. So the GT3 order will be restored, and we are almost inevitably going to have a safety car restart, and therefore all the gaps are going to bunch up. So at the moment, you can see where the order is. You've got one GT4 car in the top 11. So when we go green again, in theory, we should have something like the top 13, 14, 15 cars all together, all GT3. Slightly dependent on where some of the GT4 cars feed back in after their pit stop. But this is going to be a really interesting second stint to the race, isn't it? As now the GT4 cars come into the pit lane to serve their mandatory stops. And Ricky Collard still leading in GT3. I reckon it's raining a bit more heavily than it was on the grid. Certainly the visibility out of the camera is not so good. Full marks as ever to our stalwart camera crews around the circuit, out in all weathers for all races this weekend as well, but finding all the action and not complaining too loudly about the weather. So Jamie Day, GT4 leader, heading up towards Druids. The flashing yellow light you can see is because we're under this full course yellow situation, and then the safety car will be released to bring people back up to speed, tyres up to temperature, ready for the restart. And we're pretty much now at the halfway point. So therefore, when we do go green, there's a limited number of laps for the pros to really do their work.
Yeah, with the safety car element, it's like a second race within the main race, isn't it? We always see the AMs do their thing, the pros get in and it sort of jumbles it up, but sometimes we don't see a potentially fast pro further down the bottom end of the top 10, say, get a chance because they're just too far back time-wise. But this safety car will really, really bunch them all back to nose to tail. So it is going to be 2 races for the price of 1 on this Easter Monday. Just watching the GT4's cars come in. Fossetti is so early in the pit lane. Jamie Day almost had to come to a stop to get the car in, as we see the Mahiki Lotuses pushing down, back down there. You can see the pros getting out, almost blocking themselves in. And it's going to be interesting to see where the order goes, where they filter into the GT3 traffic. Some might be a lap down, some might have stayed on that lead lap still.
So it's all shuffling around once again. You can see how the order is changing as the GT4 cars cycle through the stops, but you've got Ricky Collard in the lead. Now, if you're thinking, well, Ricky Collard is fresh out of the British Touring Car Championship, so what does he know about GT racing? Phil Keane will easily pick him off. Think again, because Ricky was a race winner in the days of the Blancpain Sprint Series at the Nürburgring when he was an Aston Martin driver, and so Ricky is perhaps a little bit out of practice in GT3 machinery, but he can certainly drive them and drive them very rapidly and successfully. So Collard Jr. versus Keane versus Mitchell, with Gamble, Smalley, Harper, Callum McLeod, Marcus Klassen, Alex Buncombe, Johnny Adam all queued up behind. It's going to be a mega second part of the race.
Yeah, you stopped at a good point, but then Marcello, then Gotts as well. So there's a huge amount of experience all the way in that top 12. Leary, Hawkins. It's going to be really, really tough to call it, and it's now working out who's got the best wet setup on their car. And I actually walked down the pit lane after warm-up, the first chance the teams had a chance in these conditions, to see who was panicking, who was changing springs, who was changing roll bars. Barwell were the only team with everything still on the car. I think Mark Lemmer, very confident, year 2 now of this Evo 2 on the Lamborghini Huracan, is confident in their ability in these conditions.
Now, we were just riding with 61 Mustang, that's the Eric Evans car, which did not stop. So therefore, that has taken over Pro Tem, the GT4 lead. It'll probably come in at the end of this next lap, but at least for the moment, this is your GT4 leader. And you can see now on the outside of Shell, not only is there a car to recover, not only is there mud and everything else to sweep off the road, there's also barrier damage to sort out. So all of this eats into the time available for the pro drivers. Ricky Collard sitting pretty. They're getting away. Number 90 McLaren held up a little bit. In fact, Zach Meakin.
It's an odd one because the Team Parker one, the 31 Mercedes, I think pushed back potentially a bit early, blocked them in, and then looked like they're going to yield a position there by driving through the slow lane a bit. Look how busy that's going to be. The Century car, Robertson leaving in the first BMW just in front there. It's going to be tight. And then the second one, they're sandwiching that Ram Mercedes as we see the GT4 Aston going through there. But when we were on board with the Mustang, I was surprised he actually had a snap of oversteer as he was going past Kavi Jundu at 80k. I wonder if there's something down there. It's a little bit slippy. They had repainted the green top part of the track, and that had then dripped down when it had rained. So potentially a change of surface, but there's a lot of mud there, and I almost don't know how you're going to get rid of it, or do you just accept it is what it is, and it's the same for everyone, and the Lamborghini would be the best because they used to make tractors. I don't know how you would call that one.
Yes, so take the top layer off and then it'll bed down or something. You remember we were getting excited early on about Mark Warren and saying how well he was doing in his first British GT outing. Well, he's handed over number 47 Mercedes to Will Oulton, but that car left before its 100 seconds, only by 6/10, but if you're under the regulation time, you're under the regulation time. And it comes up on the timing display in bright red to alert everybody, so I rather fear 47 will be attended to by race control once they've dealt with incidents, full course yellows, safety cars, and got people back underway. But really, you're bang to rights in this modern age of technology and the data, aren't you?
Yeah, there's no margin. 1,000s under is the same penalty as 10 seconds under. You've got to come through the pit lane and serve that sort of minus time that you did on your Delta as the final car does pit.
So the interest now is going to be where number 61 will bleed back in. So this is Eric Evans to give way to Marco Signoretti, and where that car is going to be. It is, as it comes in, the GT4 leading car, but it's got to wait, remember, 100 seconds is the regulation time, plus an extra 14, because it's a silver-silver pairing, and the regulation is if you have 2 silver drivers against the Pro-Ams, you must serve this extra compensation time in the pits. That is the car with this Damocletian pit stop investigation hanging over it for being 0.6 of a second under. Big, big shame for number 47, the Forzetti Motorsport Aston Martin team.
Yeah, and it's difficult for them because they are at the start of the pit lane, like I said, when Dave pitted. So they've got the biggest gap from when they leave to the end of the pit lane. So there's more margin for error, I think, in that one. But yeah, new team for British GT. 6/10 doesn't sound much, but they might have just rushed to try and get out in front of a car. You can see that Optimum McLaren has kind of caught back up that Mercedes where they left in the pit lane. All the cars should be doing 80, but obviously it's hard for them to be exactly the same. I remember when I was at McLaren and we were doing all the systems work on 720 GT3, then Artura, kind of talking about how I'd want the map to be able to just adjust the 80k by 0.1 of a K. So if I was losing time, I could then find 0.1, 0.2, and I do think that's the only reason the Multimatic Mustang might have stayed out. If they felt like they've got a quick 80, they're in clear space, doing 3 laps before they pit might just pay dividend in terms of just getting up. Otherwise, it makes no difference whatsoever. Here we are, seeing them pushing back. Let's see where they push back into.
Well, the GT4 field will be coming by, but Ricky Collard is the race leader. And he now is way, way ahead of Phil Keane. So you can see that the number 63 Lamborghini coming in towards Old Hall Corner has not only got GT4 traffic, but also a lot of real estate, like 8 seconds between it and Phil Keane's Mercedes under the full course yellow. Now, is that down to when they are released? Is that down to being in the traffic? discuss.
Yeah, I'm looking at the speed, so he's lost 4 seconds that lap, Phil Keane. But you look at the speed traps, which are annoyingly in miles an hour, so I'm just trying to quickly work out what 45 is in kph. I think that he's probably just caught a GT4 car at the wrong point, and it isn't able to keep to the delta time. And the problem is, once you've gone over it, you can't then do the next lap quicker to go through. So he came through sector 2 at 45.6 miles an hour, which in kilometers an hour is only 73.3. So he's 7k down. He was 10% under his delta time in that speed trap, which is equated to 4 seconds lost, and that's why he's now 8 seconds behind. The safety car will bunch them up, but now there's GT4 cars between them. Those GT4 cars are trapped there, and Phil's then got to work round them before he can potentially get on the back of Ricky Collard.
So, in theory, we ought to be able to go back racing fairly swiftly. I think I'm right in saying, coming out of Shell, that the track work has been done. The car is away. So, the Toyota Supra making a return to the championship for Toyota Gazoo Racing after a year away. Hasn't lasted very long, sad to say. But the car is clear of the track. It denies us the chance to see Dan Vaughan behind the wheel in race 1. So we can't be too far away, I wouldn't have thought now, from Peter Daly releasing the safety car to then, OK, bunch up everybody. So these gaps we're talking about become slightly less important, but it brings the speed back up. It brings the speed up, it reduces the gaps. What it doesn't affect, though, is the traffic that is still between GT3 cars from, for example, those cars of Phil Keane and Sandy Mitchell stuck behind GT4 traffic. So we're building up, as I say, to the resumption of the race with only now 22 minutes and counting to go. Right, Bryn has yet more news from the pit lane, and some teams are not having a happy day, Bryn.
Not a happy day. I spoke to Will Moore and Matt Nicol-Jones about the plight of the 62 Mustang that you're looking at right now. Looks like the splitter needs to be replaced. They did get tapped a couple of times, Will said, by Goff, and he's not sure if that contributed to some of the problems that, you know, got him off in the end, but it's really superficial damage. You can see just how much mud and grass has been collected by the Mustang. They're working on it. It'll be fine for race number 2, but they've just got to check it over. But Will's not a happy bunny.
Imagine, and I think we have discussed, haven't we, over the course of the weekend, the need for keeping out of trouble, banking points, self-preservation. We know Oulton Park can bite, we know any circuit in the wet can bite, and there are a number of big names. You know, there you've got the Mustang squad, you've got Dan Vaughan as a GT4 champion, you've got Matt Cowley as the reigning champion even before the race got underway on the sidelines. You know, quite a lot of big names, Joe, leaving Oulton Park with a big hit to their championship aspirations already.
Yeah, that academy team were the Mustang champions last year, so they know how to win. But that's going to be really difficult to swallow a DNF straight away. Hopefully they can actually get that car repaired and even just get some laps before race 2. Otherwise, the first time that car will turn a wheel again. As we see the safety car actually in the background just leaving. So under full course yellow, the safety car has this kind of awesome free rein. As you can see, the Lotus joined the track, but they've picked up the safety car perfectly to the leader there. Sometimes they have to
safety car procedure. Safety car procedure. All cars speed up to catch the safety car. All cars speed up to catch the safety car.
And that voice you just heard is Peter Daly, the race director, racer himself, very quick Formula Ford racer. So Peter doing this, yes, as a race official, but he also understands what drivers go through, and a very experienced race official. His partner Lorna Vickers is in the safety car, and Ricky Collard now trying to get the warmth into the tyres, ready for the resumption of the race. And that indication, that instruction, speed up, catch the safety car, gets everybody in a line, ready for the restart. So we are getting ready to go back racing. It's been a very, very long interruption to the race. It started with one car, it was procrastinated by the demise of the Supra, but it's Collard from Keane, Mitchell, Gamble, Smalley, Harper, McLeod, Clutton, Bunkum, Adam, Marcello, Roach, Gertz, Neary, Hawkins. Top 15 are all GT3 cars. The leading GT4 entry at the moment is still number 7 Aston. It's Mikey Porter at the wheel, so it's got its class lead back. So we're behind the safety car for certainly 1, maybe 2 laps, partly to get the tyres up to temperature, partly to let the stragglers catch up a bit as well.
Yeah, a couple of interesting points. You can see 3 GT4 cars there between Collard and Keane, and then 1 between Keane and Mitchell, then 2 between Mitchell and Gamble. Smalley right on the back there, and then Harper, Callum McLeod, Clutton, Bunker, Johnny Adam, Marcello, Roach, and I think it was Gotts. So we've got some big big ones going there. I didn't expect to have to name check all of them, I'm afraid, but those 3 GT4 cars I think will give Ricky Collard, having a big slide there, sorry, will give Ricky Collard, though, probably a 3 to 4 second lead at the end of the first flyer, just with Phil Keane having to pick them up. The only negative of this full course yellow going to safety car for Collard is he already caught it, so he didn't go any quicker than 80 at any point, whereas the cars towards the back get a sector or two attacking the car to catch the safety car, just to generate a little bit of heat. We're going on board with Sandy Mitchell here. Can't quite see the dash, so not able to see tyre temps or pressures, but it's quite gentle at the moment, so he's obviously quite happy they're in a window. He'll be riding his left foot on the brake while his right foot's on the throttle, just to generate temperature in the brakes, radiating all the way to the rim, so he's ready to go as soon as it goes back to green.
Just before we do, quick word about that 61 Mustang. Because of where that car was released, you can see it came back onto the track behind the GT3 leader, and there it is stuck. So it's effectively dropped a lap on the GT4 opposition. So they rolled the dice coming in a lap later. It didn't pay out for them, and so that gives us 4 GT4 cars on the lead lap, and it's going to be a fight between them. Safety car stays out for 1 more lap, so the speed is quickening. But for the moment, at least, the cars work their way up to Old Hall Corner, and what have we got? 17.5 minutes, so it's going to be, what, 13 and a half or so, even if we go racing at the end of this lap. And we await news from the race control building of that. I'd mentioned 47, Mark Warren, Will Oulton's pit stop time being under investigation. The same is true of 31, Charles Dawson, Seb Morris, the Parker Mercedes. That is also under investigation, not for the time, but for the procedure.
Yeah, that was the one I spotted in the corner mile that pushed back, I think, a little early, held, and then that ultimately held up the 90 Optimum GT4 car, which isn't allowed. The pushback is you go back into the fast lane and you release. You can't wait in that no man's land. You're blocking people in, it's super dangerous, as we see Ian Loggy talking to Jules Westwood there about his stint. I think he'll be happy with that. Didn't put a foot wrong, looked fast, looked racy, spots himself on camera. He's had a good morning so far.
Yeah, I think he'd just like more racing laps, you know, start behind the safety car and then end up with a full course yellow, but these things do happen, and the cars now come up through Shell Oil's corner. One or two of the teams being asked if there's going to be a wave by, which is a regulation that's been introduced in the Spa 24 hours. There's confirmation of those pit stop dramas we were talking about, one for the time not suiting the regulations and one for the procedure not suiting the regulations. So coming out of Britain's, the old Fulston chicane up towards Hilltop.
Safety car in this lap. Safety car in this lap.
Sounds like Jesus in his cave, doesn't he, at the moment?
Well, he does a little bit, but I think the words that you didn't hear were thank heavens or something at the end of that sentence. Peter Daly's had a torrid time trying to keep everything on track, and with his army of people in race control, making sure that all the different regulations are adhered to. It's not just running the race, they've also got to make sure that recovery vehicles are collecting the right car, bringing it to a suitable place, that marshals are sweeping. And there's a lot to look at in race control, not just what we're seeing here on track. So 15.5 minutes remain. Keep everything you've got crossed that we can get to the end without a further interruption, because of course now, first time I can say it all season, safety cars can breed safety cars, can't they? You bunch up everybody, you let them loose, and there is always that possibility of another incident. So let's see how we fare. Here we go then, and Ricky Collard accelerating away. It's up to him to control the pace, and he aims to build that gap as rapidly as possible, while Phil Keane has to wait until he gets to the green flag, get to the timing line, and only then can he get past those 3 GT4 cars. So Ricky Collard is away and gone already.
Yeah, he's passed the first test. You've got to use those GT4 cars as your cork in the bottom. He's done that well. Backed them up so far he could go early, so he didn't catch the safety car by going that early. And look at that gap already, 2.5, 3 seconds. So he's got a real march on it. Phil Keane timing it perfectly, not losing any time, getting past the Ram Mercedes, but still 2 cars to go. And Collard will be all the way down the avenue, just going out of shot into Cascade. So perfect restart for that Barwell Lamborghini.
Absolutely right. And so now Phil Keane's got to try and get through the traffic. So was Sandy Mitchell then in 3rd place. Fastest lap of the race, by the way. Sam Neary, as you see there, Dan Harper in that purple-nosed BMW, the reigning champion, trying to get up the inside. More spray hanging in the air now. So admittedly, in many of the cars, you've got the more experienced driver, the pro driver on board. They should be able to cope with the conditions in a way that the AMs may have been less confident of doing, but even so, it's still very treacherous out there. We are on lap number 19. That's all. As there, look, up the inside goes Adam Smalley in the Duckham's back garage, 59 McLaren. This is Sandy Mitchell. He's working his way through the GT4 traffic. Clears one of them, but he's got that Mustang to sort out as well, coming out of the Britain chicane now, pulls the trigger and ought to be able to get through before they hit his lobs.
Yeah, so our first 3 cars through the leaders, we see 2 wide. Gotts on Roach with Neary sniffing around the back. Gotts got a terrible exit there, must have gone hard into the traction control, stopping the rear wheels from spinning, but ultimately driving him forward. Look at that, there's a bunch of cars trying to spot them through, bit of debris being thrown around. Look at Marcello all over the curb on the inside. Neary's done well there, he's got past 2 cars on that little straight. Roach now struggling for grip. Gotts trying to go around the outside. Is he going to get eased off the track? Very fair by all of them. Roach actually not having his rain light on, not flashing at the mandatory 4 hertz now, trying to help the drivers be able to see it. 63 is going to be investigated after the race for safety car procedure.
Because it was not within the 5 lengths, I fear, of the
Car
safety
47, 1 second stop-go penalty, short pit stop. Car 47, 1 second stop-go.
Right, that's the GT4 Mark Warren, Will Oulton Mercedes being sorted out that we'd already mentioned. But yeah, we'd seen Ricky Collard lagging back, then he was able to accelerate. He controlled the pace, but he didn't stay within 5 lengths of the safety car. That's what's being looked at.
Yeah, you have to stay within 5 lengths while the lights are on. I was surprised how big the gap was that we couldn't even see the safety car as he came out of the last corner. So he must have slowed down before the safety car turned its lights off. He's not in control at that point. It's only when the lights go off, which we know is kind of out of Druids, before the bridge, but it'll be interesting to see if he built that 5-length gap that you correctly said about pre-safety car lights. Oh, that's awkwardly big, isn't it? I think the lights literally went off, but
yeah, but that's not 5 lengths.
Does it stipulate 5 lengths of your car or a 40-foot lorry? I'm trying to find Mark Lemmer. This is awkward now. You take over, please.
Okay, that's a lovely bit of tarmac we're looking at. I'd like to see a Lamborghini. There it is. So that's what's being investigated, that he had dropped so far back. Then you can accelerate, admittedly, but it's the 5-length regulations. So, yeah, I'm a bit surprised somebody wasn't on the radio from Barwell, because they know the rule book inside out.
Yeah, and there's just nowhere to hide now. We've got a great shot of it proving it, but there's GPS on all the cars, which is live back to race control. The safety car driver of Lorna Vickers will be saying, that's way too big. I think it's going to be a drive-through. I think that's the fair penalty. It was just too extreme to be a slap on the wrist this early on in the championship. Phil Keane would be getting told that, I think, by 2Cs. He obviously saw it himself, but now he knows it's under investigation. His focus probably shifts away from attack to actually now worrying about being the race leader would be my prediction.
It's going to be investigated after the race. So if it is a drive-through, that would be put on as a time post-race, which could be 30 seconds, which would drop the car down because of being bunched up onto safety car, and therefore, with the relatively few number of laps before the end being possible, they're all still bunched up behind. So this could be quite serious for the Collards. Dad and lad combination. Anyway, we'll worry about that at the end of the race, because right now there are still lots of battles to sort out, including this for 6th. Dan Harper, Callum McLeod and Marcus Clutton, the man from Oldham, but based in North Wales these days, on the back of the queue in number 77 McLaren. And Dan Harper, the reigning champion, he was a bit of a late booking in a sense to come into the championship to Century this year to replace Chris Solkel with Michael Johnston. It's great to have him on the grid, and he's a BMW factory driver, the former Ginetta Junior star, Carrera Cup GP champion. And Dan Harper right now is keeping Callum McLeod, ex-Formula Ford gun, at bay.
Yeah,
Team manager car 63 to race control.
Right, that's not good. 63 to race control. That's the Collards Lamborghini. Again, Peter Daly, the race director's voice you've just heard, and he's not asking the Barwell team about their health.
No, he even sounded angry as well.
Yes.
Even I learned that at school. You learn the tone of your teacher's voice to get your cover story right. The only thing you could go with is that they had a problem. You've just got to lie through your teeth and say we had a misfire. Ricky was trying to sort it. Really, really sorry. Like, do you want to go for dinner tonight? Anything like that. But Phil Keane looks quick, doesn't he? The last lap took nearly 2 seconds out of Collard. We're going to have probably 4 laps remaining at the end of it. Going at that rate, he's going to get to the back of him. Does he need to clear him? Is he going to clear him? That's the hard bit that we just don't know. But he's really dropped Mitchell, hasn't he? Ian Logley, I think, has made his own mind up if that should be a penalty or not.
Well, he can see car 63 will be investigated. It's on the timing screen. Everybody up and down the pit lane knows it. And so, not for the first time here at Oulton Park, it looks as though the regulations and the rules rules, even if you don't win on the road, are going to help Ian Loggy. Remember it 2 years ago. Right, so this car could be promoted to second place. Sandy Mitchell, what can he do? Well, he's now lapping quicker than Keane. He's now 3 seconds back, but he took 4/10 out last time. So this is the car now that's really got to get a hustle on to uphold Barwell's honour. If it all goes Pete Tong for number 63, the sister car that you're riding on board with now needs to salvage the race.
Yeah, going off the AM pace at the start of this race, I thought this was the favourite car to be right on the back. The GT4 spread him out. McLeod on the defence there from Clutton. It's a long way round the outside. Clutton's trying to work it. Can he cut it back to the inside and get a run? But just a really short run to this first chicane. It's so narrow here with these GT3 cars. Hard to overtake. This is the best overtaking spot. Set it up now. Open the corner up, straighten the steering wheel. Try not to touch the curb to sort of aggravate the rear traction. Then down this hill. The biggest brake zone of the lap, always leading to the best overtaking spot. McLeod covering it, waiting for Clutton, then moving back over. Going to give him a little nudge here, I think, in the middle, just to let him know. Another chance to open the corner up. The wider you make the corner, the shallower the angle, the faster you can go through that said corner. That Mercedes looks so planted of McLeod. I think he now is on the front foot, trying to get back to Harper. He obviously made a mistake in sector 1, I would say. But it looks like he's got the pace over Clutton in sectors 2 and 3.
And Sandy Mitchell is still absolutely charging, by the way, in third place on the road, because he's doing purple sector on this lap. 3 purple sectors, fastest lap of the race, a 43.6, so he's much, much quicker than the 2 ahead of him. And still the team manager of car 63 is being summoned to race control. There, coming out of Deerleap, is Callum McLeod, former Formula Ford sparring partner of Nick Tandy, who went on to be a Porsche factory driver, of course. Callum's career hasn't taken off in quite the same way, but he's still much underrated and very, very rapid in the right car. This, in GT4, is the leader. It's Mikey Porter now, driving number 7, Aston Martin, ahead of Seb Morris in number 31, although that car, 31 Mercedes, is being looked at for its pit stop procedure, and Zach Meakin is third in GT4 in the number 90 McLaren that comes out of the Optimum Motorsport stable. Right, 31, Seb Morris, another local man, Chester. Comes out of Lodge Corner through Deerleap now, heading towards the timing line. And it still looks proper horrible in that spray, doesn't it, in the gloom?
Yeah, I thought it died off a bit, but I think under the safety car it just rained a little bit more. Slight dry line emerging. You can see how wide people are running through there, staying off the racing line. Super slippy at Old Horn. Easy to touch the exit curb as well there, which really none of these cars like. The painted surface so much slippier than the tarmac. You can see Meakin trying to get an exit on Jordan Albert. Got a slight run on him. Albert going to the defence. I think that will really, really start to annoy, because he is a lap down at that point, Jordan Albert. So he's able to defend because he's not getting blue flags, because they're not the GT3. So the marshals always struggle a little bit more in the GT4 element to keep on top of that blue flag bit. So he's not disobeying any rules, but yeah, that will be really grinding the gears of Zach Meakin.
The lead gap between Ricky Collard and Phil Keane is dropping like a stone. It's a second and a half now between those two. And then Sandy Mitchell has done another fastest lap of the race, a 1:43.3. He's over a second a lap quicker than the sister car. He's 0.6 a lap quicker than Phil Keane. So it's concertinary, first, second, third, but we've only got 5.5 minutes on the clock, as you can see, just over 5.5 minutes. But that is the gap. It was over 2 seconds last time. It's a second and a half now. Hundreds taken out of the lead by Phil Keane in sector 1. This is game on, and still the team manager of car 63 has not gone to race control, and the race director's getting ever more grumpy about it.
Yeah, he will be, and it'll be interesting. I know they said after the race, but to then call him up, it's almost like they've got more evidence now as Collard whacks the bollard, Keane following suit.
What do we
Car
put this gap
63
down to?
will be issued with a 30-second time penalty in lieu of a drive-through safety car restart procedure.
There you go.
Car 63, 30-second added to your race time in lieu of a drive-through safety car restart procedure.
And 30 seconds is going to put that car in 13th place. Now, I was about to say, what do we put the gap coming down to? Because clearly it is ebbing away. Keane is catching, so is that him hustling on? Is it Ricky Collard with a problem? But in a sense, it's all irrelevant anyway now, because for not respecting the safety car restart procedure, a 30-second penalty post-race is going to go the way of number 63. So the Mercedes now can just sit there. Ka-ching, race win coming up.
Yeah, the 2Cs team will be straight on the blower to Keeney, telling him, you can chill now. But Mitchell does have pace. So he's got 2 seconds. We're coming across the line with 4 minutes to go. So we're going to get 3 more laps, including the one they just started now. So there's a chance Mitchell's going to hustle Keane, but I don't think it's going to come to that. What does Collard do? Does he keep pushing? Because if he finds another few seconds, he's going to keep finding he doesn't drop all the way to 13th. But I think Race Control have done a really good job there. I think it's completely the right penalty. You called the 30 seconds, I called a drive-through. We're both kind of right. I'll take the credit, thank you. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, let's see. We're right on board now with Sandy Mitchell, 3rd place. Just make an adjustment down there on the right-hand side. I think that's the wiper speed. Because interestingly, the windscreen wiper is not moving at the moment, and I would say he would want that to be. So you have a button on the wheel to activate it, then a wiper speed, so you can change how vigorous it wipes itself across. You see the sister car wipers on, Keeney wipers on, Sandy not. The only reason you wouldn't is sometimes here at Oulton Park you get so much mud on the track, you get thrown onto the windscreen and then you wipe it and it smears. But I'd be surprised if we're at that stage because it's wet enough to go as he turns his wiper on. So conspiracy theory solved, but it is going fast. That must be using some horsepower.
Yes, wiper spotting with Osborne is the new game of the day. But yes, having now got it to go, it's a very active windscreen wiper indeed. And Sandy Mitchell is still charging. He is quicker in the sectors than Phil Keane. Of course, he's running out of time, admittedly, but he is still really charging. He would desperately like to catch that Mercedes for the win. He's 3rd on the road. He's going to be 2nd on corrected times. And now that the message is on the timing screen as well about this penalty for the race leading car, everybody will know it. And they'll be able to smile about gaining a place. The one that won't be smiling is Rob Collard, which is a big, big shame after his efforts early on. However, over the timing line, the leaders go. We're going to get one more lap out of it at the end of this.
Change of penalty. Car 63, no penalty. Car 63, no penalty.
Is that because I got arrogant and pretended we were really clear? I'd be interesting to see why, in terms of there must be some more evidence that they're going to support Barwell, but so everything we've just been talking about is completely irrelevant, and Phil Keane now needs to knuckle down in these last 2 laps to see what he can do. But yeah, that's been a roller coaster of emotions on that front, hasn't it? The interesting bit, just looking at the tracker, I don't think we're going to get any more GT4s than this single Aston GT4 that they're about to overtake. So that was the other wild card I was looking forward to. But yeah, Mitchell still wasn't happy with his settings. You could see him scrambling on the centre console just as he was going up to Druids last time we ran on board with him. But yeah, Ricky Collard has probably just saved himself one of the most awkward conversations with his dad yet far.
But there are now going to be discussions, I think, with the other teams about that penalty being issued and taken away. But we understand it is all to do with the lights, which went off, came back on, and added to the confusion. So benefit of the doubt given to Ricky Collard. So,
but surely flashing lights are always going on and off.
Close the door on your way out, please. That would be really kind. Right, Ricky Collard leads. Ignore what we were saying about penalties. It is now rescinded following review. That's the phraseology on the message display to all the teams. So 2Cs, the team that operates that 2nd place Mercedes, now have to get on the phone to Phil Keane and say, sorry, you do need to push after all. Tom Gamble in 4th place now has done the fastest lap of the race as the leaders go through onto the final lap of the race. There's less than a lap time left in this opening round of the British GT Championship. Ricky Collard then leads the way. Phil Keane is 1.2 seconds back. I'm not sure he's going to get there in time.
I really don't think he is. I think it's all closing up, but not at a big enough rate. Just looking at the comments on the live stream, seeing some potential offers of money changing that penalty. I can tell you from fact, I've gone up to Race Control with a lot of cash and have never got my way. So it is obviously an opportunity for them to review the footage better, and that's what all we ever ask for in motorsport is you want a quick decision, but it needs to be the right decision. So if you haven't got all the facts in front of you, then you need to make sure you get that, because that penalty would effectively be a DNF points-wise, and that really hurts their championship. So of course I want the right result at the time, but I want it to be right full stop.
Yes, indeed. Although you have a little bit of sympathy for Phil Keane. If the team did say, right, you've won this race, you can back off, now it's impossible for him to catch up. Had he been pushing every lap, he might be a bit closer, he might be able to strike. Sandy Mitchell in turn has caught up to him. However, like Joe says, the result has to be a fair one, and the benefit of the doubt for this drama over the lights given to Ricky Collard, and the race director has rescinded the penalty. So for now, we can say that 63 Ricky Collard in his British GT debut for Barwell with his dad is going to be a victor. Down they come then towards Lodge Corner. The clock has hit 0. The checkered flag is at the ready. It's going to be a 1-3 for Barwell Motorsports. Second in between the two 2Cs, the Mercedes. But Ricky Collard and Rob Collard win round 1 of British GT for 2024. Over the line comes the Barwell Lamborghini Huracan. It is a win for Ricky Collard and a very happy dad who's already celebrating. Second, Phil Keane and Ian Loggy. And third, Sandy Mitchell and British GT rookie Alex Martin. Tom Gamble taking fourth along with Mark Radcliffe, and this is going to be the car that wins in GT4. Jamie Day started, Mikey Porter brings it home, and they've had a really good run. I know there's been relatively few racing laps, but they have kept out of trouble and they've been really quick when allowed to be.
Yeah, lights to flag really, even with the full course yellow, so looking really strong. Still half a lap to go, mine. Obviously, just because the GT3 leaders crossed the line doesn't mean they've won their respective class, but yeah, they can literally stroke it all the way home. Wouldn't look to overtake that Paddock McLaren personally. It's a lap down, there's nothing important going on, but yeah, they look really strong, don't they, for GT4. That new Aston Martin Evo really working quickly. It's been quick over the last few years, but I think the Evo has just addressed any of the sort of drivability concerns those drivers have had, and it's definitely looking like an absolute weapon this year, that car.
Comes up to put a lap on number 11, the Blake Anglis Alex Walker McLaren Artura, but that's a lap adrift in GT4, so Mikey Porter can just sit there and bank the points, can't he? He doesn't need to get past. So it's a shame that we had that penalty and the confusion over it, but Rob Collard's already celebrating. It would be, in a sense, rather unfair for Ricky if it was another victory that got away from him, because he's one and only touring car win. Didn't count because of track limit abuses, and that disappeared. He never got another chance to win. GT4 success for number 7, the Forzetti Motorsport Aston Martin. Mikey Porter and Jamie Day win at Oulton Park in GT4. First time out for Forzetti, really good result. And although we did have a couple of cars off, it was really just the time recovering them more than damage that was the cause, wasn't it? And it could have been a whole lot worse given how treacherous the track surface was.
Yeah, it was tricky out there. I think everyone done a very good job in that regard. And if you're thinking about race 2 is just going to be a copy and paste of this, remember the grid was determined by the pros, so the starting order is completely different. And looking at the forecast, I think it's going to dry. Look at this, it's already stopped raining and the track has dried out a fair bit in the last 5 minutes. So I think we're going to see a very, very different race 2 this afternoon.
Well, race 1 has given us lots to talk about, lots to go and investigate and discuss in anticipation of race 2. There is your GT4 winner. Not only is it a good job by Jamie Day and Mikey Porter, but a hat tip to the team, a new team as well.
Yeah, it's really difficult to come into a championship cold. Lots of regulations, lots of setup work to be done, managing drivers, managing personnel. There's a huge amount that you need to do, and you can see why that normally takes a little bit of time, but they've done it absolutely spot on with 2 cars. So in the last corner, Marcello around the outside of Johnny Adam goes in a little bit deep. Neary then sees his opportunity. We saw that battle happening at the start of their stint. That was similar, wasn't it, to last year? Johnny Adam defending from Ross Gunn.
That's right.
Johnny Adam did exactly the same, blocked him out and carried on his merry way. So Johnny has definitely got that last corner sort of manoeuvre sorted as we see all the cars heading back to pit lane.
Not often you see Raffaele Marciello making a mistake, but that was one, and it cost him a place. So Ricky and Rob win round 1. Ricky and Rob Collard, the victors here at Oulton Park. Ian Loggy and Phil Keane take second, with Alex Martin and Sandy Mitchell third. Fourth to Mark Radcliffe and Tom Gamble, ahead of Adam Smalley and Sean Balfe with 6, Mike Price and Callum McLeod. Marcus Clapton 7th with Morgan Tilbrook, ahead of the Bunker brothers, Chris and Alex. 9th, Michael Johnston and Dan Harper. Top 10 rounded out by Johnny Adam and Giacomo Petrobelli. Sam Neary got 11th on the last lap in the Mercedes he shares with his dad, ahead of Raffaele Marciello and then John Ferguson. Kevin Say and Maxi Gutt struggling to 13th after a spin. Hugo Cook recovering with Sasha Kakad for 14th, and Tom Roach and Simon Orange dropped away down to 15th. A little bit further back, Mikey Porter and Jamie Day winning in GT4. Second of the GT4 crews provisionally, number 31, Seb Morris and Charles Dawson, but their pit stop procedure is being investigated, remember. Zach Meakin and Jack Brown were third, ahead of the penalised Mark Warren and Will Oulton. Ravi Aramid and Charlie Robertson fifth, and the Mustang of Marco Signoretti and Eric Evans coming through in 6th place. So, a lot to discuss, a lot to ponder in anticipation of the second race. The winning margin in the end for the Collard family, 1.4 seconds. Phil Keane might say that had he not been told by the team to relax, he could have made that up and been in a position to challenge. But I think Ian Logie will also appreciate the need to bank points, and he knows, and Phil Keane knows, how to put a championship together. Phil having had more race wins, but never the title, so he desperately wants to change that. Let's see how things pan out over the remainder of the year for the two of them. Ricky Collard, then race winner, and let's hear from him with Bryn.
Well, here's Ricky now. You've got to stay where you are now, Ricky, I'm afraid, because your dad's on his way over in just a few seconds. What a race that was. We were scratching our heads for a bit, particularly when we saw the shot of the safety car lights going off and you nowhere near it.
Yeah, obviously the safety car lights went off pretty early, and yeah, I didn't slow it down completely. I went to a sensible pace, what we were doing pretty much behind the safety car.
Well, here's your dad as well coming in now. It's going to let them have a little moment now. Rob, I mean, tears in your eyes by the look of it. Rob, just talk us through the emotion here, racing with your boy.
It's amazing. All the hard work you do, all the struggles over the years, and to come back and to this championship, first race for my son, put it on pole and win the race. He stroked it home. I had to stroke it home as well, and it's really good. There's I think the safety cars helped us, obviously. A little bit of a drama with the safety car restart, but it's all okay. So it's a very good way. Very pleased for the Barwell Lamborghini, and just great to be here back in the championship.
I popped my head in the garage when that was going on and saw your face and Mark Lemon's face, and you just looked completely calm, but I'm not sure if you were calm at that moment because you didn't know what was going on. Ricky sounds like he all had it completely in hand though.
Well, you never know. There's always a little bit of drama in any sort of race championship, and that just fueled the drama for a little while, but I'm pleased, the result's the result. We've got our first win together of the championship, so second win we've ever had, so we won at Spa back in 2020 together, so it's nice to be back and hopefully a few more this year.
Well, look, you won it in 2020 overall as well, maybe 2024 as well. Well done to both of you.
Fingers crossed.
Cheers, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
So a great job done by drivers and team. That win in the Spa 24 Hours that Rob talks about was a class win. That's an overall win. That makes it even more special, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. And yeah, to share that with your dad, with your son, respectively, you could see the emotion on Rob. And he's quite a hard-faced character, isn't he, from British Touring Car days. He's definitely someone I wouldn't want to pick a fight with. But seeing, let's say, some rain on the top of his cheeks was super beautiful to see.
Right, what about the GT4 winners? Jamie Day and Mikey Porter, they're with Bryn.
Well, Jamie, we spoke to Mikey before the race out on the grid and you were sitting in the car ready to go. The rain's been torrential, it's starting to ease right now, but it was a real safety car story, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. The start was all green flag, a few cars going off in front, but the main thing was just keeping it nice and safe for the first few laps, to just build in that gap, and then the full course yellow came out just before we boxed, so that was just a nice little breather before we had to stop.
Couple of wins you got in your first season, your debut season, a couple of years ago. So it's nice to start with this one here. For yourself though, Mikey, I mean, your first ever British GT race on your debut, you get a win. That's pretty good. And these conditions, we keep talking about how hard they are, but for yourself, only Ginetta experience around here, really.
Yeah, it's just all really good. It's unreal to think I'm one of the youngest winners in British GT4. So yeah, I'm really pleased. Everyone done an amazing job. Jamie done an amazing job handing over to me, and then I got the gap. And then just managed it for the rest of the race.
You seem to be very, very calm right now. The emotion must be there, but you've got to get yourselves ready for race 2. Just talk us through what's going on in your head at this moment, because coming into a championship like British GT and GT4, which is extremely competitive, you must not really be imagining you're going to be, top step at the podium, particularly with a brand new team.
No, it's just great. And now we just we focus on race 2. Get best prepared for that, and hoping to have the same result then.
Can of Fanta later on for you. Now for yourself though, how easy is it to work with him?
Yeah, it's really good. He's just built himself up over the GT Winter Series, and it's proved today how he can just keep his own out there in the lead and keep building that gap just by himself. It's really impressive coming out of Ginetta Juniors so soon.
Very, very impressive start. Well done to both of you. Trophies, go and get them and then get ready for race number 2. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, thank you.
Great start of the season for the Forzetti Motorsport team. and by both Mikey Porter and Jamie Day. Not surprisingly, one or two of the other teams asking of race control why number 63 no longer has a penalty. So that might be a discussion that rumbles on in the next few hours. Bear in mind, we've got another race to go this afternoon here from Oulton Park, and as long as the timetable stays on track, then the second race is going to be getting underway at 3:45 this afternoon. That's the scheduled start time. But for now, Barwell Motorsport for Ricky Collard and Rob Collard, Forzetti Motorsport for Mikey Porter and Jamie Day, celebrating class wins. Teams, I think, pretty pleased. They haven't got too much damage to repair. Let's look at the highlights then of round 1 of the championship. It was a good start after the safety car had peeled in by Rob Collard. He was able to build a big lead early on, but it wasn't that long actually before Ian Loggy was able to chip away at that. We had an early spin though for the number 32 Audi that rotated at Old Hall. Around went Sasha Kakao. Thankfully everyone avoided him, and also number 9 of Mark Smith avoided John Ferguson's BMW as he got it wrong under braking. Carl Cavers likewise coming down towards his lops. More drama for Carl Cavers, getting involved with Richard Neary. No action taken against either of them as they battle the conditions, and both were able to rejoin. Full course yellow was called for, and it became a very lengthy one. Ricky Collard took over from Dan Robb in the number 63 Barwell Lamborghini and had the lead of the race. But then with confusion about the lights on the safety car, he dropped a long way back. He was able to accelerate with a clear road ahead of him, and a penalty that came was soon rescinded, leaving number 63 as the race-winning car. In GT4, Mikey Porter and Jamie Day on target for a victory, but as Ricky Collard brought home number 63 Lamborghini, it was a victory in round 1 of British GT for 2024 for Rob Collard, for son Ricky Collard, and for Barwell Motorsport, with Jamie Day and Mikey Porter winning in GT4. Race 2 will be at 3:45, all being well, here at Oulton Park. We'll see you later in the day. Bye for now.